Don't go just yet. It's time for Buckeye Grove Instant Access, brought to you by BuckeyeGrove.com as part of the Unscripted Ohio Podcast Network, wrapping up the latest Buckeyes basketball news.
I'll make it.
Post-game talk, action from around the conference, immediate analysis, and much, much more, all on the fast break. Don't get whistled for a double dribble. Here's your host, Kevin Noon.
Hey, welcome to the BIA Podcast. It is Monday, June 28th, and we are taking a break talking football and football recruiting to talk a little basketball recruiting. Everybody got really excited about June opening up and just what that meant in terms of football, but let's not forget basketball was in that same dead period for all those months, and now, they had the opportunity to come back. A lot of visitors. Ohio State obviously has a new assistant coach. So much going on there. I couldn't think of anybody better to bring in than our great basketball recruiting expert, Jake Spegal, to kind of talk about some of the things that are going on. First and foremost, Jake, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Kevin. It's been a couple dry months there during, April, May for basketball recruiting, but with June, with things opening back up, a lot of official visitors, and then just this past weekend, Division I coaches finally could get out for the first time in about 2 years. So a bunch has happened this month in a short period of time, so glad to be back on. We got a lot to talk about.
Absolutely, and I think one of the first things that I want to talk about and everybody wants to talk about is it feel like there's a bigger net out there that Chris Holtmann has cast? And especially when we're looking at class of 2022 bigs. And I think that we certainly saw during the Big Ten season last year and everything else that Ohio State probably a little undersized compared to some of its conference foes. We can go round and round and round about whether or not basketball is truly positionless or whatever. But, I don't know much, but I know one thing, that the Big Ten certainly puts the big out there, and Ohio State probably needs to find somebody there, especially with the transfer out of Ibrahima Diallo, who, I think by all accounts, everybody knew that he was going to be a bit of a project, and he's going to now have to be a project somewhere else. So Ohio State's certainly looking toward those bigs.
Yeah, definitely. I think, it's kind of, for anybody who's been paying attention even the least bit, I think it's been pretty obvious that 2022 and even getting started with 2023, Coach Holtmann and his staff, Coach Beaton and Coach Diebler, and now Coach Skinn, they've been offering a lot of guys in the 2022 class, bringing in a lot of guys on visits, a lot of big men, obviously. They landed Joey Brunk in the portal last year from Indiana, and he'll be a big help. But obviously, he's basically just a one-year rental. So they're going after a lot of big men, a lot of visitors. They bring a lot of those guys in on visits. A couple guys that I'd like to talk about. Jarris Walker is he's about a 6'8" forward, kind of hybrid big, but he's one of those kids who he's just a freak of nature athlete. He's kind of built like a linebacker, but he jumps out of the gym. He can rebound with anyone. He's a top 10 kid in the nation. He goes to IMG Academy down in Bradenton, Florida. They brought him in for a visit a few weeks ago. I think that would be a huge get if they're able to land him. Obviously, kind of tough to get a hold of some of these big time guys nowadays, but he did post a few things from his visit. Seemed like he enjoyed it. So he's a kid who's still going to visit a lot of blue bloods. So obviously, with the month rounding out, he's finishing up his visits. But then another guy is Felix Okpara. He's a 7-foot big. I believe he's from Winston-Salem Christian down in North Carolina. That's the kid who, he kind of seemed to pop on the radar this year. He's one of those kids where I think he's kind of always had the size, always had the tools to, be an elite level big man. But I think he's kind of just now putting it together, just now, growing into his body, figuring things out there. So that's another kid they're definitely in the mix for. And then somebody who I know a lot of fans, at least on the board and all, were really excited about. He's another top 10, top 15 kid like Jarris Walker. It's a kid by the name of Derek Lively. And unfortunately, he seemed to kind of narrow his recruitment down to, the Dukes, Kentuckys, North Carolinas of the world. He just released the top 8 last week. He didn't include Ohio State, although they were in the race for a while. But, they're still going after a lot of guys. They've got the big guys they're going after, like him and Jarris Walker. And then they also offered a kid by the name of Patrick Wessler, who he's just a 3-star kid, a kid who, he's starting to pick up a lot more offers. It really seems like after Ohio State came in, I think he picked up offers from Iowa, a few other Big Ten schools. So that's another kid where I think he's not quite as much of a project as Diallo, just given the fact that bringing in Diallo, he was a kid without a ton of experience and whatnot. But Wessler is another kid who I think is really starting to grow into his frame. I think that's a kid who, if they're not able to land, one of the big time guys, that would certainly be a good option to go to because, he may not be as athletic, as talented as them, but, he's going to be a bruiser inside. He's got the length. He's got the size. He can stretch the floor, which, is so big nowadays. And then, even going away from the big men, they're still looking at some wings in that class. A guy that I'm a big fan of, his name's Dylan Mitchell. He goes to Bishop McLaughlin down in Florida. He actually he plays AAU with Bruce Thornton, our 2022 point guard commit. He plays with Each One Teach One Elite, which is a very high level EYBO program. That's the kid who Ohio State offered him after they watched his Each One Teach One team. Him and Bruce, they beat Amani Bates. For a while, he was consensus number 1 prospect. He dropped to number 2 on Rivals, but they took down his team at a tournament in Florida. I guess Dylan, I saw a little bit of video highlights from it. I guess he really gave Amani some problems. He's a 6'8" wing. He could probably guard the 4 and hold his own against the 5 if he gets switched on there. And that's the kid who I'm a big fan of, just with the way basketball is played today. The way people it's going positionless and stuff. He can guard point guards. He can guard wings. He can step down on the block, like I mentioned. And then he's a kid whose offensive game is really beginning to grow. He's been a major stock riser on Rivals over the last couple months. I think he went from somewhere in the 130s. I think he shot up all the way to 41 or 42 in the new rankings, which obviously is a pretty huge jump, about 90 spots. He's had a huge spring, and that's a kid that I'm really confident about. I think Ohio State has a really good shot at him. He's always, this is stuff I don't look into much, but he's always liking Ohio State stuff on Twitter and whatnot. But the big reason, I think that is, he has family in Ohio, so he's comfortable here. He made his visit to Columbus, seemed to really enjoy it, and then another big reason I think is playing on the AAU circuit with Bruce. That's kind of a point guard wing duo. Those guys seem to have a pretty close bond, and so that's a kid I'm pretty confident about. And then there's a few other guys they're going after in that class that they seem to kind of lose a little bit of traction with. But one guy that I like to close this little segment with would definitely be Sean Phillips. He's another 2022 big man. Ohio State. He was one of the first prospects they offered in the 2022 cycle. Another kid I'm pretty confident in is a big man, just because he spent last year at Pawnee Prep Academy up in Michigan with Amani Bates, kind of just in fear that the OHSAA wouldn't have a high school season. But he's originally a Dayton Belmont kid, so he's in state. He released his top 8. I think it was back late May. He released his top 8. Ohio State's in there, a few other Big Ten schools, and he's not staying at Pawnee next year. If I had to take my guess, if he's not going to a prep school, I would assume he's going to return to Ohio, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him at another prep school. But yeah, those are just a few guys, they've been really involved with. A few of the big time guys, like I mentioned, they've kind of lost traction with. But, with just the way that they're casting a lot more offers, it's a strategy that I really like because obviously in the 2021 cycle, late they were really pursuing some elite level big men really hard. Ethan Reed, Charles Bediaco, Frank Kepnang, all guys who, they had a shot at. They were in on their final list, but those are guys who, it's going to get hard to compete with, the Dukes and Kentuckys of the world. So I like the way they're still staying aggressive with those type of prospects, but at the same time, they're casting a much wider net, knowing, we're going to need to have a little bit of a backup plan. We can't land these guys, and so even some of the like a 3-star guy that I mentioned, like Wessler, that's a kid who, I love that offer just because, as I mentioned, he may not be one of those big time kids, but he's someone who I definitely think can be very productive in the Big Ten.
You're listening to the BIA Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Noon, joined by Jake Spegal, and we're talking about Ohio State men's basketball recruiting. If you're not a member at Buckeye Grove and have a chance to check out all of Jake's work and be able to go through the rivals rankings, take advantage of our free trial. It's coming to an end here soon, at least being able to get on board with it. Use code VISITS2021. That's VISITS 2021. Get a free trial through August 10th. What do you have to lose? Nothing. Get on board. Visits 2021. Now, to pick up kind of where you were with all of that, you mentioned Sean Phillips. There, have been some big visitors, in 2022. AJ Casey, Dylan Mitchell, Kyle Filipkowski. Where does Ohio State kind of stand in some of those? I mean, certainly in a lot of those, Ohio State is up there swinging against, some of the biggest programs out there. You certainly, people know as they follow football recruiting, you don't close on everybody, but numbers are even more limited when it comes to basketball and just the number of scholarships there. But, kind of where do things stand coming out of this round of officials and these visits?
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned that because AJ and Kyle are two guys who kind of just flipped my brain during that little segment there. But two guys I definitely want to talk about. AJ Casey, he's another big man from Whitney Young, a school that produces a lot of high-level talent year in, year out, public school in Illinois. And then Kyle Filipkowski, he's a kid that plays AAU with Roddy Gale, another 6'11" big, modern-day big man, stretches the floor, can attack guys off the dribble. But, in terms of, with all the visits going on and whatnot, AJ Casey is a kid who, he would be a real gem of that recruiting class. But in his situation, he recently took his official to Illinois. I think, just in being a Whitney Young kid, Illinois actually just landed a kid. He ended up transferring, I believe, but his name was Adam Miller. He got some valuable minutes for them last year. He's another Whitney Young kid. I would certainly consider Illinois the front runner there, but with the way things are going, at this point in time, kids like AJ and Kyle, they still have to play on the EYBL circuit in July. Out there, it takes one good game and you could have 10 new offers in a day. So, but yeah, AJ's a kid where I think Illinois, he probably leads that race, but Ohio State's definitely up there, top 3, top 4. Then Kyle Filipkowski is a kid who kind of in a similar situation with Bruce, where I'm very confident in us possibly landing him, just because he plays AAU with Roddy Gale. He's shown a lot of interest in Ohio State. He posted that he really enjoyed his official visit. But he's a kid who he's been another big stock riser over the summer. He's a 4-star kid. As I mentioned, he's 7 foot. He can kind of do it all on the offensive end, and then he's he can block shots. He might not be the most athletic guy, but he can be a shot blocker for you. But that's a kid who's also he's been bringing in a lot of offers recently. I think Syracuse is definitely one of the programs Ohio State's going to be competing with a lot there. He's a Massachusetts kid. He's out on the East Coast. Then Michigan recently jumped in the mix there. And then some other schools I would watch out for with him are Indiana. He visited Indiana. He's getting ready to take an official to Iowa soon as well. And then Northwestern's another school he looked at. But, in terms of, the schools in his recruiting race, I would I think Ohio State's definitely up there. Obviously I mentioned he played with Roddy, but Ohio State would be, with the way the program's been trending in recent years and what Coach Holtmann's been able to do, it's really appealing, especially, compared to in Indiana where they've got a new head coach. Northwestern's been down a little bit, but the one school that I would really watch out there with Kyle is Duke. Obviously, he's taking an official to Duke today, so that's a school where it's going to be hard to compete there. But at the same time, they haven't offered him, so I think Ohio State's got a really good shot there. I think it's going to be coming down to if he doesn't land that offer from Coach K and the Blue Devils, I think it's going to come down to kind of a Big Ten battle there. He's a top 50 kid, but he's got a lot of schools all over him: Illinois, Indiana, as I mentioned, and then Sean Phillips. If you had asked me today, I've briefly talked to Sean Phillips before, but I think Ohio State leads his recruitment. He posted his top 8, as I mentioned back a couple months ago, but Ohio State's in there. He took his visit. Sean he's a kid who's from Ohio. He's been recruited by Coach Holtmann since probably 2019, I think it was 2019, early 2020. That's a kid who, I think they really stand really well in his race. And then, as I mentioned, also, all the factors going into Dylan Mitchell's recruitment. I think that's another kid who they could really have a real good shot at landing. And obviously, the numbers are so juggled now. It's so hard for me to keep track of scholarships with, transfers and the extra year and everything. But, I think it's going to come down to them going after a wing and the big. And he doesn't have any, he doesn't have any set dates for when he wants to commit or make a list or anything. But I'm really, really confident in Dylan Mitchell on the wing. And then, really the 3 or 4 big men I would keep an eye on, just the guys I mentioned, Sean Phillips, Kyle Filipowski, AJ Casey, and then even the guy I mentioned, like Patrick Wessler, where, Ohio State's one of his better offers. So that's a kid where, I think he could maybe jump the gun if he doesn't pick up anything on, I'm not exactly sure what his AU team is, but whichever the 3 circuits he plays on, Adidas, Nike, Under Armour, if he doesn't pick up a lot of traction after July, I think we could kind of see him start to narrow things down. But that's just kind of goes for everyone. With all the officials going on in June, it's great for all these kids to finally get out to campuses and see these places. But at the same time, coaches can finally get out and watch them live and in person next month. And, there's huge tournaments on all 3 circuits every weekend. So I think a lot of kids are going to hold off a little bit, but I'm really confident with where Ohio State stands in a lot of those battles. I think they've been doing a great job with the official visits. Something I just kind of want to mention kind of to the side, but I think the creative team for the basketball program is getting a lot better. I think I'm really impressed with what Joe DeGemma and those guys are doing. I think in today's day and age with social media and kids being so obsessed with Instagram followers and likes and all that, I think the photo shoots and everything, obviously, most all schools are doing that, but I really think Ohio State's doing a great job with that. I think that's something that's really appealing to kids, something they really like. And then I've talked to a few guys just, getting a rundown of their visit. I even talked to some of the guys who already committed, Bowen, Roddy, and those guys. Seems like, a lot of these kids, coming in for a visit, they'll watch a practice, they'll meet with Coach Holtmann in his office, kind of talk about how they would fit in, and whatnot. And then, like Bowen, some of the guys who already committed in that class said they got to go out to dinner with some of the current guys, Eugene Brown, Michi, all those guys. So I'm pretty confident with where we stand in some of these battles, and I really think the casting a wider net, if that's what you want to call it, I think it's going to pay off in the long run. Something that my guy Jeff Bowles, who used to be an assistant at Ohio State, he's always done that at Ohio, and obviously it's a mid-major, so you're not competing with some of these huge schools, but I think that's something really good. Get on these kids early. If it doesn't pan out, the offer can always be retracted. But I really like that strategy, and I think it's going to pay off in the long run.
I'm going to throw one more at you before we take a quick 30-second break, and then we'll come back and kind of rapid fire as we're at the 20-minute mark here on the show. And that's about the addition of Coach Tony Skinn to the coaching roster. They lose Terry Johnson to Purdue. We have Chris Holtmann going kind of out of his coaching tree to go land Skinn, who's coached, I believe, 6 years. Short coaching career, but certainly somebody that's well respected in the DMV area. A lot of energy to him, a lot of buzz around his name. Kind of what are your thoughts on what Coach Skinn means toward Ohio State's recruiting effort? And do you think that, maybe some of this wider net may be something that has to do with just shaking things up a little bit in terms of how they view things?
Yeah, definitely. I think Terry Johnson was, he was a very integral part of that staff. I talked to some of the guys after he left. Malachi Branham in specific seemed to be really close with him. But, I think whenever Coach Holtmann and their staff, when they brought on Tony Skinn, everyone was kind of like, well, who's this guy? But, after doing a little bit of research into him, I really like that addition just because in the fact that, he's obviously a brilliant basketball mind. He's been around the game. He's still young in his coaching career, but he's been around the game a lot. He has collegiate experience. But the thing I really like about Coach Skinn is he's been an AAU program director for EYBL programs. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was for Mocan Elite, who. That's one of the best programs in the nation. Trey Young played with them. Several other big-time guys. They won the EYBL back in, I think it was 2016, which is, that's as big as you can get. And but I really like that addition just based on the recruiting side of things. As I said, obviously, he's a great basketball mind. He'll help him on the court. But, really on the recruiting side of things, with a guy who's been so involved in the EYBL and knows how that works, I just think that's a really good addition. He can, he's been around a lot of these high school kids, during AAU, kind of knows how they, obviously not these specific kids they're recruiting, but knows how a lot of kids, operate on and off the court and then on the circuit, and knows how everything works with the live periods and, with which circuits to watch. Obviously, Ohio State, I saw Coach Peterson this weekend at Mount Vernon for OHSBCA showcase, and then you have Coach Holtmann was out with Coach Stiebler watching some games as well. But I think Coach Skinn is the guy who's really going to help them on the recruiting side of things. Just get more involved on the EYBL. He might, as a former program director, he probably knows a lot of these kids coming up just with how early these parents like to get their kids involved nowadays. But yeah, I really like that addition on both the recruiting side and on just in general on the coaching side. I was really surprised when they brought him on just because I'd never heard of him, but I do like the addition of a young guy, a guy who's been involved on the EYBL compared to maybe somebody who's going to be an older coach, somebody who's got a lot of experience, but might not be able to relate to today's generation of kids, but the way things are changing so much. But yeah, I really like that addition. And then kind of the famous thing for Tony is and I think it was the 2012 Olympics, he had a crazy ankle breaker on James Harden. So that's kind of seems like that's what a lot of people have been talking about since they hired him. But aside from that, I think it's a really great addition.
There you go. We've run through 3 questions there. We got 4 on the back end. We're going to take a quick 30, and we will be right back here with the BIA Podcast.
Egg Water Conditioning has been treating well in city water in Central Ohio with American-made water filtration products for over 60 years. Have a water quality problem? The water treatment experts at Hague know how to solve it. Not sure if your water softener is working? They will test, inspect, and sanitize any brand of water softener for only $20. Schedule a system checkup or water test today by calling 614-836-2195 or visit them online at HagueH2O.com. That's HAGUE H2O.com.
Welcome back to the BIA Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Noon, joined by Jake Spegal as we're talking about Ohio State men's basketball recruiting. We're already about 25 in, so we'll go a little bit quicker with these. 2023 recruiting rundown. They're starting to send out a lot of offers, certainly looking at in-state guys as well. And, that always is one of those points that people make. They want to see Ohio State be a national program and go out and get those kids, but they get sick and tired of seeing kids that maybe toward the end of the Thad Matta era that were Ohioans that would go to Wisconsin or wherever and then would end up creating issues. Kind of what are you seeing so far here with 23?
Yeah, so I really like what they're doing in the 2023 class. Getting involved really early with a lot of these guys. Obviously, a handful of unofficial visitors during June. But I was talking to someone about this earlier today. 2016, 17, towards that, you're missing out on the Seth Towns, Nick Wards, Javon Besses of the world. So, I really like how they're being aggressive in state. Obviously, way back in August, they offered Rayvon Griffith. He's from Cincinnati Taft, but he's a kid they offered so early because he's a national top 20 kid. He's kind of gained a lot of fame on social media, playing with Bronny James on that circuit, with Strive for Greatness on the EYBL. So, that's a kid that they offered really early. But, just in June, I really like the way that they're going after a lot of these in-state kids. I'll just run down the list real quick. They've offered these kids. They took them, all four of them on visits. But Austin Parks is one I want to start with. He's probably, in my opinion, the only surefire high major big man in the state right now. I just had a chance to watch him Saturday. Unfortunately, he got banged up a little bit, and he had to sit out the last few games there at the OHS BCA showcase. But that's a kid they offered on his visit. He's a 6'10" big man. He goes to St. Mary's Memorial. He's a smaller school, but he's really burst onto the scene this summer, playing with the Ohio Buckeyes in AAU, which is, it's a new team. It's a non-shoe circuit program, but they're the only team that's, beat All Ohio Red, who, obviously All Ohio Red, there's big dogs in Ohio. That's who everyone wants to beat. A big part of that was, Austin and his playing side didn't really have a matchup for him. And then another kid I want to talk about is Gabe Cup. It's another kid similar to Rayvon. He gained a lot of fame, a lot of social media notoriety, playing with Bronny James. He's a point guard, 2023, Centerville High School. He's very, very talented. When you talk about kids who just know how to play the game, play it the right way, Gabe is one of those kids. He always makes the right decisions with the ball. He gets his teammates involved. He's a lights out shooter. He gets to shots in the mid range, and that's a kid who, a lot of people have had doubts about Gabe, at the high major level, just because, he's always been shorter. He's always kind of been the tiny kid, but, he's grown on his profile now. He's up to 6'2". And I'm not sure how true that is, but if he is 6'2", he'll have about every high major offer he wants. Gabe's the kid who they took on a visit. They offered him on his visit. Xavier was his first offer. Then Brown went out and offered him, and now Ohio State. Now he's getting some bigger ones. Cincinnati, most notably yesterday, he picked one up from Clemson. He led Centerville to a Division I state championship as a sophomore, which is huge in Ohio. Obviously, leading that team as a sophomore is his dad, Brooke Cups, who's the head coach. That's big time. He plays with Midwest Basketball Club on the 3SSB circuit, Adidas. And he's a kid playing 17U. He's really, really excelled there. And then next weekend, he'll actually have a chance to really prove himself. He's going to play Bronny James and Amari Bailey and those guys that strive for greatness. Then another kid, Laurent Rice. He's from Huber Heights, Wayne, 6'3", 6'4", point guard, extremely athletic. He's a left-handed kid. He's knocked down from three-point. Similar to Gabe, he can get to the mid-range. Maybe a little more of a scorer than Gabe, a little more aggressive. But that's a kid I'm really impressed with. I watched him for All Ohio Red. It's All Ohio Super 16. For being only 6'3", 6'4", he jumps out of the gym for a guard. As I mentioned, he gets to his spots really well in the mid-range. And that's a kid who I'm not surprised that they offered. He picked up an offer from Purdue way back at the start of his sophomore year. They're really starting to roll in for him. You know, he's picked up Arizona State, Kansas State, lots of high major schools starting to, you know, dive into his recruitment. And then lastly, for in-state kids for 2023, Dalen Swain. I think that's kind of been not the big name, but kind of the name that people have seen because Dalen, he's 6'6". His high school coach says he's a point guard. I think he's a wing at this point, but with his playmaking ability, he could certainly be a point guard. He handles it really well. He scores from all three levels. He's a lockdown defender. He plays with All Ohio Red on the EYBL circuit. Same team as Laurent Rice, as I just mentioned. And really the big deal with Dalen is he's the first kid since Jeremiah Francis in the class of 2019 to pick up an offer from Coach Holtmann in Ohio State. He's the first Columbus City League kid to pick up an offer from Seth Towns. Obviously, Seth's at Ohio State now, but he went the Harvard route originally. So it was some big news in Columbus when Dalen picked up that offer on his visit last Wednesday. That's the kid who I'm a big fan of him. He's still only 15 years old, which is wild to me, and he's extremely advanced for his age. And that's a kid I'd really like to see them land. I think that's a kid they've got a great shot at. I spoke with him after he picked up his offer. He's been an Ohio State fan his whole life, but his recruitment started to take off a little bit with some other Power 5 schools diving in there. And then they've just been, you know, casting offers to some other 2023s, out-of-state kids. I'll just run down the list real quick. Won't go into too much detail, but kids that have also visited. Owen Freeman, he's a big man from Bradley. And I'm probably going to butcher this, but I think it's Bradley Burbanus. It's in Illinois, something like that. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but they've offered him. Mackie Johnson is a kid who plays on Wildcat Select. He's a West Virginia kid, Huntington Prep, but he's originally from West Virginia. So he kind of stayed in state and went to a bigger prep school. High school basketball in West Virginia is not very good, to say the least. But that's a kid, another kid I'm really confident with. Ohio State got into his recruitment, got involved early on. He plays on Wildcat Select with Bowen Hardman. Obviously, Mackey's 16U, but he does play up with that 17U team a lot. That's another kid I'm confident with. And then another kid that they haven't offered yet, that they might not offer because I think they might think they don't have a chance at him, but he's from Laurel, Kentucky. Reed Shepard's his name. He plays AAU with Gabe Cupps on Midwest Basketball Club. He's a big time kid. His dad played at Kentucky. His mom played at Kentucky. Probably going to go to Kentucky, but that's a kid I'd really like to see them offer. I haven't personally. I haven't seen a single kid all spring or summer who has as good of a combination of skill, size, and you know the kid's IQ is just through the roof. He just really knows how to play the game. So that's another kid I'd keep an eye on. You know, that's a kid. You know, obviously I'm not a college basketball coach for a reason, but I'd just give him an offer. You know, just to get involved there, although I think he's going to be a Kentucky kid just with those roots. And then, obviously, I think Bronny James, as cliche as it sounds, is always a kid to keep an eye on. I think he'll be a kid who goes blue blood or goes to the G League or takes one of those routes, depending on if the rule changes. But just being originally from Akron and, you know, with the way people say LeBron would have went to Ohio State, I think that's a kid, obviously, to keep an eye on.
So you answered I was going to talk about Dalen Swain. You already hit that one up, so I can skip past that one. So let's jump to 2025. And as you know, we kind of went over the questions that we wanted to talk about. I started to feel incredibly old when we're talking about 2025, but was it Darren Peterson out of McKinley, already starting to get noticed, and you wanted to touch base on him a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna make this short. I just wanted to talk about him real quick. Obviously, Ohio State hasn't offered any 2024s. I'm sure they're not getting very involved with either 2024 or 2025. They've got their hands full right now. But Darren Peterson's just a kid I want to keep an eye on because he's an in-state kid. He's from McKinley. He plays two age groups on Wildcat Select. He's probably the best player on that team. He's 6'4". He's a wing guard. He can run the point. He's picked up offers from LSU and St. John's, and then most recently, I watched him at the OHSBCA showcase, and Coach Huggins from West Virginia, he was in attendance. He decided to extend an offer to him after his performance there. So yeah, that's a kid I kind of just wanted to mention. I think sooner rather than later we'll see Ohio State take a stab at him, just because that's a kid where you want to get involved early. He's supposedly going to McKinley, but a lot of kids like that are kids who will end up going prep just because they've had all this notoriety for so long. It's a similar kid I guess I'll touch base on in 2024. His name's Amir Ali. Might be butchering that, but he's going to Montverde Academy next year. He's originally a Columbus kid. He's got several high major offers. He's 6'8". He's a knockdown shooter from the perimeter. He's got a great handle. He's a really talented wing. And those are the two kids I keep an eye on, just, being top kids, in their class, and originally Ohio kids. I just keep an eye on them, similar to a situation like Rayvon Griffith, where they really got involved early. I had a chance to watch Amir yesterday at the Kingdom Summer League. I'm a big fan of his, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Ohio State, maybe not get aggressive there, but kind of, I'm sure they're in the mix with those kids, just getting involved. So those are two kids who I would expect to be, early offers, if not the first offers in those classes.
You're listening to the BIA Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Noon, joined by Jake Spegal. Last question, and you led me right into it. The Kingdom Summer League Pro-Am. Just what have you seen, and what can you share with people? I'm willing to bet a lot of people out there are not even familiar with what the Kingdom Summer League is. So, in over the span of a couple minutes, just, what is it and what have you seen? And we'll send this show home after that.
Yeah, so the Kingdom Summer League, it's a Pro-Am. It's for professional players. The way they word it is for professional players, and then people that they think are on the way to be professionals. So, you've got your pro players there, NBA guys, then you've got big-time college players, and you've got your occasional really high-level high school kids. Tyron Johnson, he founded it. He's a Columbus guy through and through, Columbus City League. It's really expanded over the last few years, and, I just want to touch on it a little bit, just based off the fact that pretty much half of Ohio State's team has been playing in it. Week one, Justin Arns, he was a big-time standout. He had 25 points. It was nice to see him in a situation where, he can kind of do his thing, really show off all his skills instead of, just being a guy who's going to stand in the corner and shoot threes. And then yesterday was really when we saw a lot of the Buckeyes guys roll in. Michi played, Zed Key, and then, really the big-time name that came yesterday, a little bit of a throwback, but Jared Solinger was there. He made it look very easy, scored probably 30 points on all three-pointers. But, yeah, I just kind of wanted to touch on that. I've been impressed with Ohio State's guys coming down. I was impressed with Michi yesterday, kind of going up against some of the better guards in the Midwest at the pro level. He's a guy who I think is going to be a big contributor next year. He's got a lot of skill on the offensive end, and he's not afraid to compete defensively. And then, even with bringing in Joey Brunk, I was talking to someone yesterday. Zed Key's not a guy who's just going to go away. Zed Key had a great freshman year. He's a competitor. He's a grinder. He just can bully guys around on the block. I enjoyed watching Zed yesterday. And then had a chance to catch up with some of the other guys there who were just watching. Matt Malachi, Seth Pounds, Kalen Netzler. It was good to see them. Malachi said he's planning on playing next week. So the Kingdom Summer League, if anyone's ever interested in, watching some of Ohio State's guys, it's every Sunday until, I believe, August 20th. Games start at 2:30. Games at 2:30, 4, 5:30, and 7. Ohio State usually always has at least 4 or 5 guys there. It's just fun to watch. Get to see them go up against some other pros. Xavier Simpson was there yesterday. Travis Trice, all those guys. So it's just fun it's a fun scene to see all these guys competing against one another, kind of from different eras. And you've got your modern college guys, and then you've got your guys like Xavier, who he's a star in Michigan. Now he's in the pros. So Kingdom Summer League, Sundays, 2:30. Games tip off. It's at Ohio Dominican, and it's free admission. So if anyone is ever interested in going out there and watching, it's a really fun time. Just watching all those Buckeyes compete, and then even other guys who come out. So just kind of wanted to touch on that, and just briefly mention some of the Ohio State guys excelling there.
And there you go, 40 minutes of coverage of Ohio State men's basketball recruiting. You're only going to get it here on the BIA Podcast. You're only going to get it at BuckeyeGrove.com, not a member. I'm telling you, we got until the end of the month. Take advantage of our best free trial offer, Visits 2021. It's going to get you a free trial through August 10th. Once again, that's Visits 2021. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email at kevin@BuckeyeGrove.com. I will do my best to get back in touch with you, but don't delay. Take advantage of this great free offer. Be able to read everything Jake's got. Be able to read everything Joseph has on the football side of things. But before we send this in for our final shot, any final thoughts that you have, Jake? I think you pretty much have talked about everything. Of the 41 minutes, I think you've spoken 37 and a half of them. So anything that we didn't touch upon?
I think we're all good, honestly. It was glad to get back on. It's been a while, so we had kind of a lot to get through with it being such a busy June. But I was glad to get back on here, talk about the 2022s, and then we're really starting to get involved with the 2023s. So that's something I wanted to touch on as well. And I think we got it all covered.
There you go, Jake. Thanks for being part of the show, and everybody out there, I want to thank you for being part of the show. Once again, I'm Kevin Noon. I'm your host. It's the BIA Podcast, and we'll be back with you very, very soon.
Be sure to stay up to date with Buckeye Grove Instant Access when the news breaks or after the big game, exclusively at BuckeyeGrove.com or anytime on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher as part of the Unscripted Ohio Podcast Network. Hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the know and never miss a single episode.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to click on that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. And come visit us over at BuckeyeGrove.com for all the best Ohio State information on the web.